Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So this is Matt Green, and I am very excited to have some great guests joining me today on our Real Insights Live event for April. It's 26, April 26th. How's the year going by so quickly? Um, it's kind of blowing me away, really. Anyways, glad to have you joining us. We'll give everyone a few minutes to start getting it on. But we really have a fantastic two guests today, a partnership that has consistently been one of the top producing teams here in Keller Williams, Utah, across the state. And one of the things that I think might be helpful for those that are either newer to our company or not aware of how we structure some of our teams, we do have two different classifications within our teams. We have a partnership, which are basically two licensed agents working together to execute on their business. And sometimes they have administrative support and help. And then we have groups, which can be a team of 15 to 20 or 6 or 7, many agents in some cases. But of our partnerships, this is where really two agents that are working very closely together as a team to execute on their real estate business and their plans. And for the last several years, my two guests, Mona Stevens and Kelly Favero, have been the #1 producing team here in the state of Utah. And I'm really thrilled to have them join us so we can better understand how their business has had such great success. Here's what's interesting, at least for me, and maybe it's just because I geek out and nerd out about real estate and the real estate business, but it's very interesting to me that I see so many people talk about or enter into partnerships. And the reality is that within our real estate industry, they generally just don't last very long. And I think there's a lot for us to learn from those that have had great success. So with that being said, Mona and Kelly, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it. Nice to be here.
Awesome. Well, if you don't mind, I know that some of the feedback that I've received over the last year when I've done these interviews is that people really love to hear kind of some of the backstory, like what was your career before you got into real estate and what led you into real estate. So if you don't mind, and I don't know who wants to go first. Is there anyone that wants to go first?
Well, I'll jump right in.
Mona's going first. All right.
The two of us, I'll jump right in.
Yeah. So Mona, maybe just start kind of what your professional career path was before real estate.
Well, it was a little varied, but the longest stint of anything that I did, which was about 17 years, and it was really the most important thing that I did beforehand, was I was a coach, and I ended up coaching collegiately at the University of Utah. I coached the women's softball program up there. I also had the opportunity during that time to coach our USA team for 4 years, which was quite the experience, and it was really great. Here's the thing that's so different and that I love about now the switch from coming from that to here. I had 2 weekends off a year in collegiate coaching. And when I say 2 weekends off, I mean really having a weekend off when you consider everything. And I got to a point where I was like, okay, I've got to have a little bit more flexibility and freedom. And I also needed to think about retirement and what that would look like. And being a softball coach at the time, the pay wasn't that great. It's better now. It wasn't that great. And I just thought I'd really love an opportunity to actually have a career that could let me retire comfortably and actually have some flexibility for life. And I know that sounds interesting because everybody says you work so hard in real estate, and you do, but collegiate coaching is a different entity.
That's incredible. I don't think very many people know that about you. And I know you won't toot your own horn about this, but weren't you inducted into the Hall of Fame within the last couple of years?
I was. It was down in New Orleans. In fact, we went down and we had quite the weekend down there in December of not last year before. I was inducted into the Collegiate Coaches Fast Pitch Coaches Association's Hall of Fame.
Wow.
There's about 65 members, so it was quite an honor. It was really something else. It was great.
That's awesome. Congratulations. That's so cool. Anything else about your pre-real estate career?
I taught science in junior high for 5 years, and it became like Groundhog Day, and went, okay, this has got to stop. So then I thought, maybe I want to go into the music business. I went to Nashville, and I was there for 4 years doing the music business, and realized I could do it, but oh boy, it's not the life I want. So I went into coaching.
Interesting.
Back into coaching, I'd say probably.
Okay, and now, of course, you play in a band as well. right?
Got to keep it balanced. Got to keep it even. Yep.
So the sister wives, you guys, how long have you been playing as a group?
15 years.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And
So if
anybody wants to come to the Garage on Beck on Cinco de Mayo from 8 to 11, you can catch us there.
they are not to be missed for sure. That's awesome. And that's a great venue, actually. That's a lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
Okay, awesome. All right. And then Kelly, what's been your career path?
Well, through college, I worked at a graphic design advertising agency, and then kept doing that after graduation. And it was a little agency up in Layton, and I moved to Salt Lake probably almost 20 years ago now, and went to work in-house doing the same types of things, advertising and design, for a Utah-based company called Stampin' Up.
Yeah, I remember that company.
Creative director for several years.
Yeah.
It was great. When I started, we were a $60 million company. When I left, we were almost a $300 million company. So
wow.
It was a great experience. I met lots of great people.
Are they still around?
They are, yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
Headquartered in Riverton.
Interesting. Very cool.
I believe they're in 5 or 6 countries now besides the U.S. So.
Wow. Okay, so after Stampin' Up.
Little fact that he didn't put in there is he did his first flip when he was like 18 years old.
Wow. No kidding. Yeah. So tell us about that. So you kind of had a bug for real estate from early on, it sounds like.
Yeah, I wanted to get into a house, buy some type of property, remodel it, change it up a little bit. What ended up happening was my dad was looking through the Standard Examiner and found an old fire station in Ogden that the elderly couple who owned it was selling on contract. And so with 0 down and for $65,000, I bought the fire station, did a quick rehab on it, and then rented it out, which kind of helped support me through the time I was at Utah State. And then lived in it after that for a few years, and then kept it as a rental for probably 10 years after that. So ended up working out pretty well.
That's awesome. Very cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So after Stampin' Up.
So while I was at Stampin' Up, a friend of mine who was in the lending industry came to me and said, hey, let's get our licenses. Let's get our real estate licenses. And just so we can kind of represent ourselves on our own purchases and sales. So at that point in time, I had a real estate agent, and I was buying and selling property for myself, every 2 years or so. And so I was fairly familiar. I had bought a few properties to remodel and sell. And so I was all about it. So we went to school, graduated a couple months later, got my license, and bought another flip, and decided I liked it so much that I wanted to do that full time. So it wasn't too long after I got my license that I quit Stampin' Up and started at a smaller brokerage downtown, working full time in real estate. At kind of a difficult time because It was right before the market went down. And
so like 2006 or what year was
it? Exactly.
2006. Okay.
We both started the
same time, same month.
At the same brokerage.
Great timing, you two.
Yeah.
So we didn't have time to build our SOI and to build our business before the crash.
But it was that last year. It was the last year of, the hype, and, it started out pretty good. And we thought, this is easy. And then, bam.
It got a little harder.
Everyone felt brilliant in 2006, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But it's interesting. Those agents that did kind of survive and learn how to do their business better through that down period have just thrived as we've come out of that market, right? And so, I think for many of us, it was a real opportunity for us to learn how to do the business in a much more predictive way and consistent way. So congratulations on surviving it. We should all get some sort of medal for that, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, let's self-awarded.
Let's do it.
Okay, so you ended up getting into the business about the same time, it sounds like, very close to the same time, but you weren't partners right out of the gate. So maybe tell us a little bit about, and I wanted to just recognize we've got a number of people joining us, a bunch of regulars. Emma, great to see you again online. Thank you. You're always so good to join. Sam, also a number of our very consistent watchers. So thank you. If you guys have any questions for Mona or Kelly, just post them on the Facebook page down below, and I'll be sure to try to stop at some point and ask questions. So appreciate you guys joining us today. All right, so if you guys could share then maybe a little bit about those early years in the business. 2006 maybe felt pretty good, but were you doing the business kind of on your own at that point as individual agents? And what was that path from, you know, doing the business on your own through a changing economy to ultimately deciding to partner up? And maybe if you've been partners with anyone else previous to this partnership.
We have not. This is the only partnership we've been in. And I'll tell you, I think that one of the keys, I mean, there's a lot of keys to the success that we have. And I think one of the keys is during that period of time that you're talking about right now. We did walk into the building the same month to become agents. And because of that, we became, you know, as new agents do, they become friends. And Kelly and I hit it off pretty quickly. And mostly because I knew he was something else. I knew he was smart. I knew his energy was great. And it was just so easy. We became really fast friends really quickly. There was no interest in becoming partners early on. We were both trying to figure out how to make this work for ourselves. And the downturn, I think one of the things that the downturn helped us do is commiserate. We helped each other through a lot of things, and we would talk through, how do we do this? You know, how do we survive? How do we keep going, keep bolstering each other up through the whole process? Because it was hard. And I remember the first thing that came across that I thought to myself, okay, I do not know what this business is about, is when we had a meeting about short sales. And I had no clue what a short sale was. And boy, howdy, did we find out what a short sale was, and as well as everything else during that downturn. So I think what we gave each other is support, and we both had grit to get through that period of time. But we worked separately, but side by side during that whole period, up until we became partners. But during that whole period, and we knew that our work ethic was similar, and our production was similar during that time. But during that period of time, we worked side by side. We'd go to conferences together that had nothing to do with the brokerage that we worked for or any other brokerage, but we'd go to some things to learn more about the business, to learn more about investing, about flipping, about everything that we were interested in. And it was just so easy. It was just so comfortable to be around each other. And he would be the one that I would prefer to do that kind of stuff with. And you got to like somebody to travel with them and to travel comfortably. Right. Yeah.
Amen to that, sister.
Yeah. So that's pretty much where we started. And then Kelly, he left me and came to Keller Williams. And I just remember thinking, I was shocked. I couldn't believe he was gone. And I felt such a void, because he was my guy that, you know, I worked with, and side by side, and asked questions, and we, you know, just worked together on all this stuff. And I know this isn't where you were going, but I'll share this with you. I was trying to figure out how to make this business work. I mean, Kelly left, I didn't have my guy. So I ended up at Barnes & Noble, and I picked up this book called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And I started reading it, and I thought to myself, because I would say often, I would work really hard if I knew what to do. And the book started making sense, and I looked down, and it says Gary Keller as the author. And so I called Kelly, and I said, I'm reading this book by Gary Keller. Is that Keller Williams? Do you know anything about this? And he said, what are you doing right now? And he said, get over here for coffee. So I went over for coffee. He dragged me over to meet the team leader, and done.
What year was that?
So that was 2012?
No, 10.
2010.
Okay, so you've been at Keller for about 8 years now.
Yeah, right.
So Kelly, what triggered you to make that move? I mean, you kind of had your comrade in arms there in your previous brokerage, and you abandoned her.
Wow.
How could I? Another agent at our office came over to Keller Williams, and he was recruited by a mutual friend of ours who was already here at the office. And when he told me he was going, I said, why? And he listed a bunch of reasons, and said, I'm going to actually go over and meet with the team leader right now. You should come. So I did. and there was a distinct difference between the feel of the office, and I loved it. Just after being in the office for 10 or 15 minutes, I was like, this is so much better. The potential for me here is that much better.
Yeah, awesome. In a lot of ways, it's hard to describe until you kind of experience it, but
Right.
agreed. So one of the things, Mona, that you said that I think is so often and one of the driving factors for people to consider partnerships is either the sense of like, I just need, like, I feel so alone in this business, and it would really help me kind of emotionally almost if I had someone that I could just kind of work through some of these ideas with, like, what should we be doing? Or I'm thinking about trying this or that. And a partnership a lot of times, serves as that, that comrade that can help you kind of talk through a lot of those things. And sometimes that leads to a partnership, and sometimes it shouldn't. I mean, that shouldn't be the only compelling reason that leads to a partnership, right?
Right. I was going to say that if that's the reason to become a partner, that's the wrong reason.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because I think that's right. But I think a lot of times that is one of the things that, perpetuates people to start having that conversation.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So at what point did you guys decide to enter into a formal relationship and really create this partnership? And what were some of the dialogues or thoughts that were going on personally on why you'd want to do that? And what dialogues did you have between the two of you as you considered entering that partnership?
Well, I think we were having a coffee meeting one day, and we were both working with the transaction coordinator at the time. And we kind of added up what we were paying the transaction coordinator and thought, wow, we could probably afford to have an assistant, not individually, but together. Mm-hmm. And that conversation just kind of led to, well,
what do you think? Maybe
we should merge some of the other parts of our business together and become a partnership. And both of us were just like, yeah, that's great. Let's do it.
We had conversations about it for about a year before, and we just kind of thrown it out there. What do you think? What do you think? And we both would kind of go, I don't know, I'll chew on it. I'll think about it. Because I'll tell you, there are more people to tell you don't do it than there are people that would say that you should do it. And for good reason, for absolutely good reason. And I remember the turning point for me was I was on vacation in the San Juan Islands with the Sister Wives band doing our little tourcation. And I was up there trying to negotiate a sewer line scope on an inspection for a house that I was the listing agent on, and it was just turning out to be a cluster. And so I called Kelly and I said, can you do me a favor? Can you run over there? The guy's there, so he ran over, he saved the day, he helped me with it so much. And I just thought to myself, the stress of trying to be on vacation and trying to do that while I'm there was great. That's not the reason to be in a partnership. But it was one of those tickers that just made us go, we're working together like this as it is. And the thing that was most interesting is there was nobody I would trust more to go do that and be my person, be there for me. There was nobody I would trust more than this guy. And so as I was coming home, in fact, I got home from that and I walked in, I sat down, I said, I'm ready. I'm ready to do this. Are you ready? And it was like mic drop. Yes, let's do it. So then the next thing we did is we started talking to people who were partners to find out why theirs worked, what issues they had, and what advice they had. And
it's surprising how many of those that were actually still in partnerships were like, probably don't do it. And this was us meeting with both partners. They're telling us it's probably not a good idea.
Don't do it.
That's like the married couple going together saying, marriage isn't that great. Don't do it.
The other one going.
Yeah.
What we could see from a lot of those partnerships was they were so similar. They became partners because they were like besties, right? They just kind of wanted to hang out all the time, and they brought the same things to the table. Mm-hmm. And even though Mona and I were great friends in business, we're extremely different. And her strengths that she brings to a situation and to our clients is completely different than my strengths. And they just complement each other in a way that we didn't see work for very many of the other partnerships that we saw. And the other aspect is a financial aspect. Almost every partnership we talk to thought that they were getting the bad end of the deal, that they were putting in the most work. We just heard that over and over again.
So we we listened to what those partnerships said, as far as, here are the issues, here's why you shouldn't do it, here's what's hard about it. And we looked at that and said, how can we structure us so that we feel comfortable and not look back on that? So not to go into numbers or anything like that, but we figured out a way to make sure that we would never feel like one's doing more work than the other, one's getting paid more and the other one's doing all of the work, because that's just a disaster. So we figured out how to do that. And we said to each other, let's try this for a year and see if it works. And then we'll revisit it at the end of the year to see if we need to tweak the way we do business together. And, you know, we put so much thought into it going into it. We haven't changed anything about it since we started.
Yeah, it's worked out perfectly.
I think one of the, first of all, for those listening, if you didn't write a couple of those things down, please go back and re-listen to that section, because I think there was such value in, you know, just the idea of interviewing a bunch of different people that had partnerships that were succeeding, and really just interviewing those people. I think there's so much to be garnished from that. So thank you for sharing that. And I think, you know, having really strong clarity in how you're going to talk about those expectations and money is so critical, because I think, you know, and how you're going to talk about ongoing, because partnerships evolve. And when you start a partnership, you don't ever expect that, you know, one of your partners, you know, spouses might all of a sudden have, you know, a serious health condition, and it pulls them out of the work for a significant period of time. How are we going to handle that, right? And it's just like ongoing conversations that you've got to be able to really be able to be fluid in that. And I think one of the greatest breakdowns that I see in partnerships is just this ongoing communication starts to break down, and they aren't able to have, or they don't have it frequently enough that it starts to build up, and then it becomes that kind of thing that breaks the relationship. So,
and any seed of resentment anywhere about anything can trip it up. And you know, we've talked to a lot of people in our office that have wanted to be partners or in a partnership, and wanted to talk to us about how we have it structured and all that kind of stuff. And we're happy to do that with anybody. But what's interesting is a lot of people start to become partners with people that they like, or they feel like, oh gosh, we've been in the office for a little bit, we really get along really well, let's start up a partnership. And I feel like people jump into it long before they should. I mean, we worked next to each other for 7 years before we decided that was going to be the case for us. And I think you probably asked this at some point, but I think one of the most important aspects of a great relationship in business, or a great relationship, but our partnership, is the fact that if you asked either one of us who we would like to go to lunch with in the office, it would be each other. Mm. I'd take a bullet for this guy. And he's one of my favorite people. If all of a sudden either one of us were in this business, he would still be in my life. And it's because we are dear friends. And I wouldn't begrudge him making more than me in a second, especially with the way that we have it. We champion each other. We trust and respect and champion each other 100%. And so it's well beyond just a business partnership. We truly are, and were before this even started, the deepest and dearest of friends.
And because this relationship works so well, we've partnered on other things as well. I mean, we've done quite a few flips together, and there's no one I would rather do a flip with. And it works out seamlessly, and it's the same situation. She's got strengths in doing a flip that I don't have, and vice versa. And we just complement each other that way. We just started discussing a development project with an architect.
I know, we're excited.
And there's just no one else that I can picture myself doing that with besides Mona.
Right.
Yeah.
There's so much trust and care here that's what this whole partnership revolves around.
And I think that's really true with any relationship, right? The relationship grows to the extent that you're willing to sacrifice and contribute and give to that relationship. And once you find that you're feeling almost selfish or not willing to do that, that relationship's going to deteriorate. And real estate can be such an emotionally challenging business with the ups and downs and all the different things that can happen, and just the crazy demand on time if we're not aware of that can show up at times. If you don't really care for each other in that way, it's really hard for a partnership to survive, I think.
Certainly.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about, why don't you start, if you don't mind, sharing with what your production growth has looked like when you first became partners. How many transactions were you doing approximately annually? And then share with the group, how many you did in 2017, just so we can get a sense for the kind of growth that your business has seen. And then once you do that, I'd love for you to kind of back up and talk a little bit about how your business has evolved over those years to generate the success that you've had.
Great. Yeah.
So when we started, we were both individually doing about $6 million a year. It's interesting because we worked together for several years before we formed a partnership, but tracking ourselves over those years, we were almost identical in sales every year we were in business before we were a partnership. So, and throughout the partnership, it's been almost the same way. There'll be times when I'm more busy. There'll be times when Mona's more busy. And those are always at opposite times for some reason, which is good for our assistant.
Yeah, she's happy about that.
But the first year we became partners, we increased our sales, and I think we had a combined sales of right around 15 million at that point. And then in 2017, we did 32 million.
It was about 33.
Combined, 33. And that was, really about half of that came from income I was bringing in, and half of that came from income I was bringing in.
And that's the two of you. And what does your team look like from a staff perspective?
So it's the two of us and one licensed assistant, Kim.
Yeah, awesome.
And
so
then,
32 million with the three of you?
Yes. I think he's wrong. I think it was closer to 34.
34 million. I think so too, Mona.
Yeah, we're so into the numbers.
That's really impressive, that kind of volume and units with that size of a team. So how many units does that equate to? Do you remember approximately?
Just about 100.
Yeah.
100 units. Okay. Yeah. So that's really impressive that you're doing that. So, okay. So what was it that allowed you to go from basically, 12 million combined when you first partnered to 34 million over a handful of years? What was it that you did that really changed your business that allowed you to see that kind of growth?
Wouldn't it be great if we could say one thing and everybody could grab?
That's what we're expecting. Come on, one thing.
I think I can now.
Oh, can you?
I can attribute most of it to competence.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
I could see the business out there before we were partners.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't feel comfortable going to list this $3 million house. I just don't feel comfortable, so I'm not going to do it. But since we've partnered up, it's we can list anything. We can sell anything. We can develop anything.
Yeah.
And I know if I can't figure it out, that Mona can.
We can do it together.
It'll work out.
It's really great. So, it's like it's like the first time we went on listing appointments together, and we were because we always do every listing appointment together. We always work on listings together and sales of homes and stuff. So the first listing appointments that we would go to, we weren't really sure how it was going to flow between us, but now it's just seamless how we do listing appointments. It's just authentic. It's just, it just flows with the people, and we're just in conversation with them, and it's really comfortable.
And since most of those, well, basically all of our business comes through our SOI, that person has a connection to us from one of our other clients or from Mona or from myself. So it's usually a very comfortable situation that's not salesy at all. It's what are we, how can we help these people?
Yeah. So, let me just add early on though, when we first went to listing points, we'd sit in the car together and we would just go, we got this. We got this. Let's just work on our energy.
I love it.
We can do this. We can go in after. This is a $400,000 home. We got this. We can do this. And now we pull up to, $1 million, $2 million homes, and it's just like we're looking at going, that roof is good. We and looking at the property, total confidence. But it comes from working together and how we've both been able to lift each other. And if I ever feel like I've got a little bit of a hesitation, he slides right in and picks it up and runs with it. It just works well.
So I mean, I love this comment because it's not one I've heard, I don't think, ever in any of my interviews. But I love it because I think it's really truthful, right? I think there's a lot of evidence that shows that when we feel confident, we're that much better at the business. When we have a sense of strength in who we are and what value we bring to the table, and like, there's no one better that can help you than me. And when we have that confidence, it makes a difference. And I love that you would share that. And like, now how do we share with those that are interested in gaining that? How do they gain that? Like, what are the steps to gain that confidence? And Mona, you kind of touched on, I think probably one of those things is, you know, even if we have to kind of create that pep talk for a minute before we go into the meeting, you know, maybe that helps us start to build that confidence. Like, hey, you've got this, and creating the right self-talk so that we walk into that listing presentation with that confidence. But what are some of the other things that allowed you, or if you were coaching someone, if you felt like it took you too long to get into that area of confidence, how would you coach someone to obtain that confidence more quickly in their career? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and one piece of, sorry.
You go.
One piece of advice that I've heard Mona give to several people is, you know, a lot of people think you need a lot of experience from a sales standpoint, and that's hard to get when you don't have any sales. But one thing that agents, especially starting out, can be doing is know your product. And I've heard Mona say this to so many people, but you're going to be more confident if you know your product. Go to every inspection you can, talk to every inspector about different issues, talk to subcontractors about how to fix those issues. Then when you are, it's just so much more comfortable to talk about someone's property if you know everything about property. It's amazing how many people we work with every day that don't know their product. And when you don't know your product, it's very hard to get through a contract and negotiate items in a contract when you don't know what the fix is.
Yeah,
Now,
you've got to be a pro. Yeah, go ahead, Mona. Sorry.
I could talk confidence and performance till the cows come home. It's my favorite thing to talk about, other than Kelly. But you know, coming from a collegiate background of athletics and stuff, you know, how much confidence plays into it. Not cocky, confident. There's a difference.
And performance, how it affects performance.
And you know, it's, first of all, especially in sales, confidence allows you to stop worrying about what comes out of your mouth, and now you can look at who's in front of you and pay attention to what they're saying and what their needs are. You're not worrying about the script that you're trying to memorize and getting the words right. You're listening and feeling the people that are in front of you and what it is that you need to do. The other thing that's really important about what Kelly just said about the product. So I teach one of the Ignite classes here. I teach the database one, and so the first thing I ask them is, tell me about the 10-4 thing, and they always, you know, they always think the most important thing is get those people in the database, which it is. But I said to them, for most of you who've just been in the business, if you could have a conversation with somebody about the houses that are for sale in Mill Creek at the $400,000, and you know what's on the market, you know what's under contract, and you know what the homes look like, the confidence that just comes from that, being able to speak about what's on the market, is important. So I said, you talk about that last 10 where you're supposed to be previewing homes. I said, don't just haphazardly go at it. Pick 5 homes at a certain price point in an area, see those. Pick another 5 at a higher price point in the same area and see that. Go see as many of those as you can, and then have conversations with people about it. Because one of the things that Kelly does that was early on, I understood this is one of the reasons that people are drawn to him with real estate, is because of his knowledge. He's brilliant. And he remembers everything. I think he's been into every home in the Wasatch Front and remembers everything about it. I just swear, you could just pick a house and he'd know it. But people, when they say, you know, you know, have you seen that house down on such and such? He can go, yeah, I have. And it's, you know, the kitchen's funky. That's what's keeping it from being sold and stuff. You just start talking like that and people go, I choose you. I pick you because you ooze confidence. You know what you're talking about. And then there's some things, you know, there's still things about what kind of you know, what the little glitches with loans and that kind of stuff that I still have to pick up the phone and call my lender. I call Kelly, those kinds of things. But knowing your product and knowing your people, I think, are paramount to confidence.
Perfectly said, right? I mean, I think you're exactly right. I think that's one of our biggest challenges. And and Ignite addresses this. You know, it talks about previewing property, and people don't. They just don't know the inventory well enough. Agents that are brand new to the business, and even when I was practicing every single day, every single morning I was looking at a hot sheet of everything that came on to the market. So I was aware everything that went under contract, right? Every single week I was out previewing as many properties as I could on my spare time. So I knew the inventory at that level that you explained. And I think you're exactly right. As soon as you have the ability to do that, and then I loved what you said about the scripts. So often we think about scripts in such the wrong way, but when we really understand how to communicate certain ideas and get effective in our speech so that we can help people make better decisions, we can stop thinking about what we're going to say and start listening, and our responses then become so much more meaningful, and they become relevant for the person that then instills confidence that they're working with the right person. Yeah.
Right.
I think in addition to that, the only thing that you didn't mention that I would really encourage a lot of our new agents and many of our existing agents, that you've really got to be that professional that understands our forms and contracts, like inside and out. Like it surprises me still how many people like don't understand the REPC at the level that they should, right? So just understanding our forms and our documents at a very, very deep level. If you'll do that, learn your scripts, and then know your inventory and really be a student of the industry and the business, then confidence starts to really show up, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you mentioned, I'd love for you to talk a little more about how you get your business. You mentioned that the majority of your business is coming from your SOI. Has that always been the case? And what have you done, over the last handful of years that has allowed you to go from a combined 10 to 12 million to 34 million over the last couple of years? Specifically with your SOI, I guess. Yeah.
Let me take the first part of that and then hand it off to Kelly, and he can talk about kind of what we do now, because I did everything by the book in the beginning. I made all those phone calls to as many people as I could, the cold calls. I worked expireds. I did FSBOs. I did all of this stuff, and I just was miserable. Yeah. It was like, oh my God, this is the way I have to do business. This doesn't resonate with me. And what I loved about listening to Kelly and the way that he did his business, I also had an SOI, and I was working my SOI. And I would say working more than massaging my SOI at the time. I was really trying to just grab as much business out of them as I possibly could, instead of a different philosophy that I saw with Kelly. And I saw his business and how he was with his SOI, and it made me just kind of turn and look and go, what are we going to do together, and how are we going to do this so we capture what resonates with us, that we can sustain because we enjoy it and it's authentic. Tee it up. Take it away.
So if I understood, this is what I got out of that. And let me see, and Kelly, maybe you clarify, but the difference between working and massaging your database, it almost goes from, and I think a lot of agents say this to me very directly, I'm worried that I'm just going to annoy everyone in my database, like all my friends and SOI, I'm just going to annoy them if I touch them 33 times. Yeah. And that sounds like work, like we're trying to drag business out of these people, versus approaching our relationship in an SOI where it's coming from a place of value and authenticity and giving, and all of a sudden that relationship goes from trying to drag business out of people to people being our greatest champions and wanting to help us give us business and help us grow our business. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, and I'll let Kelly take it from there, but I'll say that we touch our clients. We touch our SOI much more than 33 times a year with the way we do stuff.
Okay, Kelly, maybe it's part of your comments. Share with us what some of the things that you're doing to touch more than 33 times.
So we keep our clients top of mind every day in all the business that we do. So Mona said, early on she was making those phone calls, and even though she's calling her SOI, she was still asking for business. And I think, and I have always had a problem doing that. I've never done that because I can't do it. So, but I love real estate, and I genuinely want to help people. So I I have a list of, and we don't have a big SOI.
You would think we do.
Right, with that kind of business, 32 million, you'd think it's huge. How big is it?
Combined 500.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's reasonably sized, and we can manage that. So I can physically keep a list of those people in my SOI at my desk. And you talked about coming in every morning and seeing what's hit the market that morning, which everyone should be doing.
Yeah.
If there's a house that comes up in someone's neighborhood, I email them and say, hey, your neighbor's house was just listed, just FYI. Or if a house sells that we had seen together before they bought theirs, I'll email them. Anything that's real estate related to them, we touch them with. And it's just a friendly, here's some information. And it's very personalized, right? Because I may only do that once or twice a day, but it's specific for that client.
Are you doing that via email or phone calls or Facebook messages or?
Depends on how I usually correspond with that person.
Okay.
So it's usually a phone call, an email, or a text. But a lot of times a text is just kind of more informal.
Yeah.
It's how I normally communicate with them.
Are you guys doing any client appreciation events or?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is probably, I would say, there's some touches that we do that are standard. We do postcards that we do postcards that show that we're in business. So we'll send something out that shows the homes that we've listed or helped purchase that are pending or sold or under contract, whatever, or active. We'll do a thank you card every February when we, after the awards stuff and all that kind of thing. We always send out a thank you because of you, blah, whatever that is. But our business, we were doing pretty well, but we got to a point where we thought we'd heard about client appreciation things and events. And we thought, I don't know, should we do one of those? And so we started kicking it around. We were thinking, what do we want to do? When, again, our philosophy is there's a few things. We don't want our SOI to just think of us. We want them to think of us fondly. We want to be sometimes people will say, I love American Express, or I love Harmon's, their deli is blah, whatever it is. We want people to say about us, oh, I love Mona and Kelly. You've got to use them. So it's more than just being remembered. It's being remembered fondly so that they want us. They want to do business with us. So we started thinking about what can we do with our SOI in our event. So we thought about, people do movies. We didn't want to do a movie because people come in, you grip and grin, they go in, you say, hi, thank you very much, turn off the lights, bam. You don't see them anymore. You don't get to really spend time with everybody. So we started kicking it around a little bit, and coming from my softball background, and the general manager of the Bees is a very good friend of mine. And so we went and visited with him and said, could we do something here? He goes, people do things here all the time. So we looked at each other and said, can we afford this? This is really expensive to do this. And then we started doing the math and we said, if we got 1.5 to 2 deals, we could pay for this. Do you think we could get 1.5 or 2 deals from this event? And we both went, let's risk it. Let's pull the trigger. We're going to pay for it first, but let's see. So we rent a whole patio at the Bees Field, and we have burgers and dogs, and we get a lender to come in and help us with the free beer.
The mascot comes up.
The mascot comes, take a picture with the kids. And you know how long a baseball game lasts?
You got a lot of time to talk with people. Yeah.
You can hug everybody.
Right.
You can spend significant time with everybody. And it was after that first event that I think, who knows where things came from, but it was after that first event that we did that sales just started to do this for us. Nice. Our business started to increase.
I think it's hard for some people to picture the amount of business that you do, and that's a way for them to visualize it. We had that first year, we had so many people come up to us and say, these are all your clients. There's 300 people
up there.
And yeah, they're all people we've bought or sold houses to or have referred us to people. And it kind of gives them a way to visualize that, which, and interestingly enough, a lot of them knew each other.
Yeah.
So it ends up just being kind of a big party where people get to socialize with people they already know.
And now they call us and say, hey, when's the Bees game? I got to put it in my calendar.
I love it.
We thought that people would lose interest, but it's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I think most people know I'm a huge fan and proponent of client appreciation events. I think it's such a great strategy, and just it's awesome. And for those that are new agents that may be listening to this, you know, that's one of the reasons why our offices do those client appreciation events as an office, because when you're brand new and you only have 2 or 3 people show up, you know, it could be tough. But when you do it with right, but when you do it with the office and you do a Death by Chocolate or some of these other events, and your clients show up and there's 500 people there, they kind of think you're a big deal, which is
oh yeah,
exactly.
I'm always amazed at agents that don't participate in those,
right?
Because when you're starting, it's ideal.
Yeah. Okay, so we only have about 15 minutes left. I really want to come back to the partnership piece, because that's what this was really all about, was, you know, how do we help people navigate the idea of a potential partnership? What are the questions they should be asking themselves? I'd like for you to do both, if you can think about like 1 or 2 things that you love about being partners. Like, I'm committed to this because of, not because of the person, but because of what it affords you. Like, what's the benefit to you? And then 1 or 2 like frustrations. Like, these are the things that kind of just drive me crazy a little bit about being in a partnership. And maybe we should have done these interviews separately. I don't know. No, you two love each other so much. I know you probably talked about it.
Yeah, I know.
All right. So 1 or 2 things that like you just love about the benefits. Again, focusing on the benefit of the partnership, and then something that maybe drives you crazy a little bit.
Go.
Confidence. I mean, it's number one. If I didn't have Mona as a partner, I wouldn't have the confidence to get certain listings or do certain projects.
Awesome. Love it.
Now we can just get it done.
Okay.
And you know, there is a huge benefit to having someone that's invested in your business, so that you can leave the office and know that it's being handled. And we both take advantage of that.
So the confidence and the ability to have a little more freedom in a really powerful, successful business, where you feel like you can have someone that covers you while you're with family or away or whatever. Yeah.
Gives you time to recharge.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you change anything on that, Mona, or is that spot on?
You know, and I know, Matt, that you're saying that, you know, don't talk about the person, but, you know, there's really something to be able to come to the office and know that you're not going to be in a someplace, you know, all by yourself trying to, you know, this quiet stuff. I always know I'm going to see him, and there's an energy that comes with that I really enjoy. And what's interesting about this, you know, that's part of that confidence piece, is that the energy that's created here, it truly is 1 + 1 is 5. This is not just, you know, 1 + 1 is 3. This is 1 + 1 is 5. And it makes me a much better person. And I think bigger because of it. I've been able to break through some ceilings of thought in my head about what I could do. And this is probably part of that confidence piece. But, you know, going from this GCI to this GCI to this GCI, and the opportunities to work with people in higher priced homes and people that are just phenomenal people. It's unbelievable, the people that we get to work with. And we're so lucky. But that energy and that mind expansion that happens, that's happened for me, it's invaluable. I can't even put a value on what it's done and what it's done for my life. And the fact that I can walk in and say, Kelly, I'm going to Mexico next week. And
she's done that.
And I've done it. and he said, and his answer is always the same. He's like, great. Let's sit down and go over everything, so I know exactly what's happening and that kind of stuff. And then the opposite conversation comes in. I come in, I go, Kelly, when are you going to go on vacation?
You're going to Mexico.
When are you going to Mexico? Get out of here.
Awesome. I think it's a great model with any relationship to evaluate whether you want to continue the relationship or to enter the relationship. Does this person, when I'm around this person, how do I feel? Do I feel energized and excited, or do I feel like I'm getting the life sucked out of me, right? Does this person help me want to think bigger? Does this person, when I'm around them, make me excited about life and think bigger about my goals, right?
And that translates into a lot more work. Some people are getting into a partnership because they want it to be easier. That's not the case.
Right.
You know,
more business.
Be a partner because you want to work a lot harder. And I feel like I need to, not just for me, but for Mona.
I don't want to let him down.
Exactly.
I don't want to let him down because I care so much for him, and I want to make sure I carry my weight and not necessarily, numbers, because we don't focus on numbers. We focus on if we just do a great job and we are, we get an A+ on everything that we go through and service the deals that we have before we start looking for new business, and just are exceptional, just as good as we can possibly get. The numbers will be there.
Yeah.
So, setting goals out there for numbers, we did that for a while, and now we're just like, if we got more, great. If we stayed there, great. But let's just be exceptional.
Okay. Any frustrations that you have as a partnership?
We've had to work through a few communication issues, especially with not just the partnership, but our assistant and the three of us working together. Sometimes that can seem cumbersome because when you're one-on-one with your client, there's a higher level of communication. When that gets dispersed between three people, making sure that everyone's on the same page and that nothing's missed, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
So how have you addressed that?
Well, we're still doing it. Well, we have conversations. We have a team meeting within our office at least once a week, if not more, to kind of make sure we're going over things, make sure we're not missing things. We'll also, when we text now, we also have a text chain of all three of us. So we make sure all of us are in on everything that we do. When emails go out, we CC and make sure we're all on it together. Mm-hmm. But we still, if we're doing our jobs, we're not in this office all the time. We're not in this office much. And so that means that we have to do a lot of that stuff with that. And it's still, so we're not face to face with each other as much as, it would be easier if we were, but it's just constant communication.
We talk about those mistakes and track them. So instead of focusing on our goals, our sales goals, we focus on minimizing those mistakes, and then the sales will come.
It was interesting. I had a conversation with a couple of partners about this very topic, and I think in any kind of relationship like this, over communication, like just over communicate almost. And I was talking to this partner, and he called me back, and he's like, "Hey, you said these things, but like I know to do that, right?" Like, and I'm like, "I know you know to do that, but I just figure I'm going to over communicate so that there's never a question that what's on each other's mind, right?" And so, and I've told that with several partners, like I always know that I'm going to get the very best from you. It's me just kind of like over communicating so that we're always on the same page relative to a lot of these things, but know that it's never, an assumption that you either don't know these things or that you're not inevitably very good at these things. It's just me over communicating to the group. And same thing, like we utilize Slack for a lot of our communications within our team, which is kind of a joint texting solution. And I encourage as much of the communication to be in those general channels where everybody's kind of aware of as much of the conversations we can, just kind of over communicate so that people are all on the same page. And I think there's a lot of value in that. All right. So in ending up, what are the maybe one or two things that piece of advice or questions you would encourage an agent to either ask themselves or ask of the partnership before they entered into a partnership? They're those agents out there that are thinking, okay, I really want to go this partnership route. What are some of the questions that they should be asking themselves or their partner? What advice do you have in kind of a parting couple, 2 or 3 sentences?
Don't jump in quickly, and really know the other person that you're considering to be your partner really well. Because the thing that we had in common, besides the fact, leave the concern and care that we have for each other out of this, but you really can't. That has to be paramount. Work ethic, your goals and your expectations, where you want to go, all of those things need to be lined up. Who you work with, how you work with people, what your expectations are as far as marketing. If I felt like you needed to call people all the time and he never did, that might be an issue between the two of us, but we have similar ways of wanting to do the business. I think that is extremely important.
And differences that complement each other.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're getting together with someone so that 1 and 1 equals 3, not 1.5.
Yeah, so that you complement each other versus just you're really fun to hang out together, right? There's that element that you complement each other and that together you can accomplish more. What is there anything else that you'd recommend?
Yeah, I think Kelly made a really great point earlier in make sure you do a lot of interviewing of people who are partnerships so that you can hear all the little different things from them that you may want to consider or evaluate before you enter into that. And then talk extensively with the person you're thinking about being a partner with about those issues, and just say, you know, let's right out of the chute, if we end up not being partners, that's okay.
Yeah.
Let's just talk through this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the more clarity you can get in goals, what are both of your combined or individual goals for life? What are your time horizons? Like how long do you intend to do this? What time period do you envision yourself really committing to the partnership? Like as much of that kind of dialogue that you can have, I think really helps set you up for success as you go into the relationship, and then revisiting that frequently because people's lives change and all of a sudden they want to spend less time on the business maybe or something. Was there any particular trainings or books? You mentioned interviewing a number of agents about their teams. Were there any other books or trainings or anything else that you could point agents to that would be helpful in them kind of considering on how to structure and grow their business?
I'd love to.
It would have helped.
Yeah. But no, we actually, it was really just talking with folks that we knew and then talking with each other a lot on how we wanted to go about it. And I think the fact that we'd been in the business for 7 years next to each other really was helpful because we weren't new agents. We weren't looking for a way to not be lonely. We weren't looking for somebody we really weren't looking for somebody to make the business better for me. In a way that felt, you know, I want to feel better about the business. It made us better in what we had to offer, and I think that's more of where we came from. But you know, no books, no articles, no videos, nothing that we had. It was just really him and I making it work together.
Yeah, awesome. You guys have been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing and taking some time this afternoon with me. I really appreciate it. I had to mention Sam Holman mentioned that his one of his events that he did was a trampoline park for a client appreciation event that he said was really fun.
That sounds like disaster.
All right.
Was there a doctor on site?
I can't bounce like that anymore. My head just aches now. But good work for you, Sam. I'm glad you can pull that off. That's awesome. And maybe that's his thing, right? If you're a bouncer, then that's being authentic to who you are, right?
That's the thing with events. Yep, you gotta do what works for you.
Hey, again, thank you so much for being on. Are you willing to answer any emails or questions if people want to reach out to you?
Sure.
Where's the best place for people to connect with you?
We're on Facebook, Kelly Favero, Mona Stevens and Kelly Favero on Facebook. All our information's there. You can text us, email us both. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Awesome. We'll post in the notes as well down below links to both your Facebook profiles, if that's all right, so people can connect with you there. All right, that's our show for today. You guys, thanks so much for being on. Appreciate you joining us, everyone that was listening in. Again, if you would, please, if you felt there was value in today's show and it's something that you'd like to share, please take a minute and post this or repost the live event so you can share that with your friends. Also, anything you can do relative to giving us a thumbs up is very helpful. And look forward to some really great future calls over the next several weeks. Again, you can find our content at facebook.com/Matt Green Utah is where you can follow me, or on our Keller Williams Regional website page, facebook.com/KW Utah. Thanks again. That's our show for today. And we look forward to connecting with you guys all very soon. Have a great day.